Hello, and welcome at another tutorial where we are going to program the wavestate native. This tutorial will focus on the rhythmic possibilities of the wavestate native. The last tutorial we created a ambient pad sound with crossfaded samples, and this time we are going to create a rhythmic preset, which is a different process in the wavestate native. So let's load the core wavestate native. Go to the core section, wavestate native. Draw it in. Okay, when you load it in, you will see this screen and we get the default preset called Unpredictable ARP. Okay, so let's start with an init performance again, just like we did in the last tutorial. Here's the init performance again, the syn and saw wave sequence. And you hear that it's crossfaded now between two samples. And we want a rhythmic pattern, so we have to make some changes to the timing lane. So let's create a bass sound in a rhythmic way. What you have to do is press the timing lane, make it active. You see here in the inspector that we have a crossfade set to time. Set that to off. We don't want any crossfading happening between the samples because we are going to create a rhythmic pattern. So crossfade should be set to off, and we are going to create a tempo synced timing lane. This way it's much easier to sync it to the current rhythms, and you see the quarter notes, the 8 notes, 16th notes. So it's much easier to create something like this. Well, something that is good to know is when you create a specific lane and you will add new slots, then it copies the settings of this current value. So let's set it to 16th notes because that's the tempo we want, and copy that cell a few times. So let's say that we are going to create 11 slots. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 slots. Now we have 3 measures of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's use one of the saw samples. Let's create a saw bass sound from the Moog. Saw down Moog 1. It's in the lead category. So now we have a specific sample that is going to repeat for each 16th note. So you hear that it's a long value, and that's because we also hear the sustain. So remove the sustain now because you want the bass sound, and set something like this. And now you see what's happening. It stops simply sounding because the sustained value is 0 and the lane is working on the sustain phase. So basically this is playing for the length of the decay because we don't have any sustain phase. But that's not what we want. We want to create a rhythmic pattern. So there's a very important trick in this. Basically we want to say, hey, every time a sample is activated, we want to retrigger this amplitude envelope again, like it does this. There's a trigger section for this, and in the generators section is a feature called step pulse. So every time there is a step pulse, it will retrigger this again. And watch what happens now. So now we have created a pattern, a rhythmic pattern, with that saw sample, and this works for everything. We can also do this, for instance, for the filter envelope. So let's say that we are creating a specific envelope and set that also to step pulse. If we are going to the synthesis tab and set the environment filter mod to maximum and the cutoff to low, then let's use a different filter for this, for instance the MS20. a gain of 1. If we wouldn't do that, set it to off again, you will hear nothing again because the filter is closed at the sustained value. So this way you can influence the sound and create those kind of movements. So retriggering is done with the step pulse in the generator section. A really important feature, so keep that in mind. So the only thing we have to do now is create a pitch pattern and some interesting rhythmic changes. So let's create also a couple of extra pitch values. Just create one and set the length. You can draw the red areas for the start and the end step and the loop end, and fill it correspondingly with your pattern. Well, let's do something like that. So let's fill that in. Plus 12, 2 zeros, plus 12, 0, 24 for instance, 3, 5, 7, 12, something like this. So now we have a rhythmic pattern created, but it's quite boring because every note is the same length, and we don't want that. Well, what we do know is that we can use, for instance, 8 notes to make some notes longer. So maybe that's a good idea to, for instance, use this one and set that to a longer note. So now it's an 8 note, but that also means that an 8 note consists of 2 16th notes. So we need to remove one of the 16th notes. So let's do that. And for instance, let's create all the last ones also to 8 notes. So we have a rhythmic pattern now that's basically this. We don't need that cell anymore, and we are changing now in the rhythm between 16th notes and 8 notes. So let's hear it now. Here, nice. Something like this, and let's add some effects. We want, for instance, a distortion on it, so use a guitar amp, use one of the presets, and for instance just distortion 1. Let's try that, a little bit of drive. Yeah, something like that, and also add a delay, for instance a stereo cross delay. Well, the 1818 dot is fine. I think I like the HPF better. We don't want those low notes reflected. A little bit more of feedback. Okay. Maybe stereo. Yeah, that's okay. So we have a distortion now and some drive. Let's remove the envelope again. Okay, very nice. And there it is. We have created our first rhythmic pattern. Another thing you can do is, for instance, using glides. Let's say that we are going to use this to all on. That means that there is no shape available, and set it to the same amount of length of the pitch lane. Draw the red arrows again. And if we do this, now we can also say, hey, what's the shape? If we use the shape button on the pitch lane and apply a shape from 0 to the 24, so that we can get those specific glides. And for instance, a pulse long, or some, let me show it more clearly. If we go in now, then if we use it now, then on this note it will go slowly from up to there to there. So just find something you like. Personally, I like these kind of things, from 24 and then slow go down. And this one too, maybe. But you can also do creative things like two pulses for the 12. Like those ratcheting kind of bass lines. That's all possible. You can also use the shape line to control the volume. For instance, if we do the 2AR again. Oh, perfect to create quickly all kind of movements in your sounds. Okay, very nice. Let's see how that holds up when we are using it with some samples. Let's create a bass line, some kicks, something like this, just to test it out quickly. And let's create a note, set it to legato, done. If we run it now, maybe 12 lower. The drum loop is way too busy. Let's change that. Okay, and it would be nice if we can use it to control it with our MIDI controller. So quickly add some controls to that, to my MIDI controller. I want the cutoff, just turn it onto resonance, and it would also be nice to have the drive, for instance, and the wet distortion. So and maybe even some feedback on the delay and the wet dry from the delay. That's all we have to do. And I have all kind of MIDI controllers here, and now I have full control over those parameters with my MIDI controller. Here, if I turn it, I'm turning the knobs now. You can see that it reacts to those things. So let's see how that works out. Okay, so really easy to do and lots of possibilities to make it to create your own patterns. And another simple trick I often do is, for instance, if I have this preset available, just set it to 1 again. Now everything is 16 notes again. I want to create a specific pattern. I simply, well, I use Ableton, but probably another DHW will have the same kind of features. But I just create one of the just some random asset patterns for this, and let's do that quickly. I use the aicd plugin for that. It's a MIDI effect, Max for Live effect, which you can download from the Max from Live site for free. And if we do this, we also need some control about the scale. So let's add a scale factor and transpose that to 12. And it's in the C now. Okay, so just generate a pattern. And now if we are going to listen, we can generate random patterns. And if you think, hey, that's a nice pattern, just select the wavestate native because it's coming from there. Okay, here we have a pattern created, and well, we don't need those notes. And it's really easy to modify or to see what's happening. This is a 16 note between 1 and 1, 2 and 1, 3 and 1, 4. And this one, for instance, is a little bit longer, and well, you basically see what's happening over here in your pattern, and it's quite easy to translate that to the timing lane. And of course, if this pattern is in C, then you have to then you know what to fill in with the pitch. C, so +2 to get a D, and then go to the C. And the sky is the limit. You can create as many pattern as you like this way, and it's a really easy way to create new patterns. Well, you get the drift. And so these are the basic steps to create your own rhythmic patterns. I hope this helps, and in the next tutorial we are going to look at the modulation matrix and how to apply those in combination with all these kind of lanes and what you can do with that. But for now, just start creating your own patterns and playing with them.